This is your Not So Critical update for Friday, September 24th. Today, the state of privacy laws in the US. They suck. Schools are being targeted with ransomware, just like everyone else. And AI is here to solve all of our problems. Now your hosts, Mike Sutton and Jon Cohen.
And for the first time, we are here without Peter, but
Yes.
luckily we've got Jon here in the rotation.
Yeah, you don't get to talk to yourself today.
Well, for the next half hour, 45 minutes, hour or so anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
A little break from talking to myself. But we got some articles to look at here.
We do.
We're going to proceed with reckless abandon and see what happens.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, you're up.
Okay, so first article of the day. A couple of days ago, or a few days ago now, it was announced that Walmart is partnering with one of the oldest cryptocurrencies, Litecoin, and that they're going to accept Litecoin as a form of payment. This, of course, caused the Litecoin price to skyrocket. For those who don't know, Litecoin is a cryptocurrency similar to Bitcoin, very similar to Bitcoin. The price went up by around 35% in the matter of 30 minutes to an hour. Just absolutely skyrocketed. Major news outlets tweeted about this, released articles about this. The Litecoin Foundation themselves retweeted something like this about this partnership. And a couple of hours later, Walmart comes out and says, whoa, we did not partner up with Litecoin. This is like not a real article or a real press release. This is not us. We don't know what's going on. And that obviously made Litecoin tumble back down to where it was prior to this. And the reason it's interesting to me is cryptocurrency is, I think just over 10 years old now, and it's still fairly unregulated in terms of things like market manipulation and the SEC having, or at least in the States, the SEC having some sort of protections against this or to deter people from doing this, but that's not the case. And this happens, every other week. There's market manipulation of some sort in the cryptocurrency space. We just don't hear about it, but it's definitely happening all the time. And the argument can be said that this happens in the regular stock markets as well, but currently we're talking about anywhere from 100 to tens of thousands of percents that change in the matter of days. So prices could be going, up 3,000%, or vice versa, dropping 3,000%, and no one's batting an eye because it's cryptocurrency and they're volatile. But why this is different is because this now directly involves a publicly traded company. And when you involve a publicly traded company, you're potentially affecting their price. So this attacker, or I don't know what to call them, this group or person that did this, now have a lot to answer for if they get caught. We're talking about federal crimes. The Securities and Exchange Commission's not very happy about this. Walmart's obviously not happy about this. So they've launched an investigation. The feds have launched an investigation. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But yeah, that's the gist, the long gist.
I think this is I don't know if I want to use the word hilarious, but it's all fun and games when it's consumer data is being breached and leaked out onto the internet, or cryptocurrency instability. Everybody wants to laugh about that. I mean, even election interference by foreign companies. But man, you mess with a publicly traded company, or you mess with oil infrastructure,
Right.
now you got something to answer for. Now you got everybody's attention. millions and millions of consumer records, I guess it's
Who
a
cares?
problem.
Yeah.
But Walmart's stock price, get
Yeah.
out of the way. Or
Went down
we
2
talked,
points. That's trouble.
yeah, trouble, the capital T. We talked last week about the Kaseya hack and how the SEC is
Yeah.
investigating because it affected publicly traded companies.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is real now. This isn't just
Yeah.
data breaches. So I don't know.
Oh, now it affects money.
Yeah. So I guess from the privacy standpoint, you could say, hey, great. Now we've got allies with a vested interest in it. So maybe that's good. I don't know. It feels like it just feels like greed to me now at this point.
Yeah.
Like we don't care about the problem until it affects us. And I don't know. I guess that's human nature, right? You don't care about a problem until it affects you personally. But it's a shame.
That's true. I guess to a degree, I'd say that's true. That I think we're very easy to disregard something that doesn't affect your immediate circle. But that's obviously depending on the person and a bit off topic. So no need to go down that route. But yeah, it is very interesting to see how seriously they take something as soon as it becomes. Is it okay to say capitalistic in nature? It's like it's almost like these things all take precedence or priority over maybe arguably hotter topics or more important issues. But
yeah, and I imagine they'll continue to. So now you've got the SEC's attention. Great. Is it going to result in stricter privacy laws? No, almost certainly
no,
not. It's going to
definitely
result
not.
in probably, I don't know, some kind of bailout for a company that's affected by this. Make sure they stay whole, make sure their revenue's not affected, make sure they can
Right.
still put, billions of dollars in their pockets that they're not paying taxes on. Sorry for the political injection. Is it going to end up helping the consumers? I have a hard time believing it. Even in the case, so yeah, it's market manipulation. They manipulated Litecoin as much as they manipulated Walmart. Does anybody care about that?
Well, that's the thing, is it seems from a federal perspective, the answer is no. They
Of course
don't.
not.
They don't give a crap about Litecoin or Bitcoin or the only thing they care about is that it's not getting them a piece of the pie, so to speak. And we're talking about a 35% increase in like an hour, and then a 35% decrease in an hour, more or less. Absurd changes in price here. And yeah, the cryptocurrency is volatile by nature, largely just I think it's kind of the name of the game is that these things are very aggressive in their ups and downs. But that's not to discredit the massive amount of money that this person made doing this. Probably. I can't see a different reason for them doing something like this. And it's extremely hard to track.
Yeah.
Or figure out.
The other side of this that could get the federal government's attention is on whether that individual ends up paying taxes on the money that they made
Right.
from this hack. Never mind whether Walmart was ever going to pay any taxes on their side of the deal.
No.
So
Very true.
But we're not going to make this political today, John.
No. It's dangerous because you can bait me with political stuff much easier than Peter. Peter would be like, all right, like back to tech. And I'd be like, let's talk about this political problem because Mike brought it up.
I'm with you. All right, let's keep rolling.
Yep.
And here you
go. Yeah. So I wanted to bring this up. I believe that I don't recall if we spoke about PrintNightmare, if you guys have spoken about PrintNightmare in the past, but it's just so funny to me that Microsoft keeps breaking shit while trying to fix it. And it's so classic. It's so classic Microsoft. This happens over and over again throughout the years. But just to get everyone back to speed, or if you're not aware of this, up to speed, the printer spooling service had like a 10-plus-year-old critical vulnerability in it, and it affected like all Windows machines pretty much. And Microsoft has been trying to fix this, and their latest patch brought networking printing issues back up to the front page, and everyone in the managed service provider space and the general IT space are having a print nightmare. Funny enough, people not affected by this, or devices not affected by this, are USB printers. Only network printers are affected. And I don't think, you know, this, we're seeing this everywhere. If you're in IT or in tech, like, you're gonna hear about this. But it's a fun topic to look at Microsoft as a whole and think that they've designed this system, and they're now kind of paying the price with the printer spooler. But I wonder if there are easier, or maybe, you know, maybe a little bit faster of a way to get all of these different major stakeholders like HP, Epson, Brother, all of these huge both consumer and enterprise printer providers or manufacturers together to try to solve this problem, as it obviously affects them as well. God knows what kind of service license agreements calls they're getting from their big customers. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, so two things, I guess. First, just as you're talking through it right now, and your mention of getting all the big players together, like, this has always kind of been the I don't know, trade-off between Mac and Windows. That Windows is in this problem largely because interoperability was so important to them that they made this service available for any manufacturer to use. And now to go back and change it, their challenge is, well, we're not just changing it for ourselves to fix, we're changing it for every manufacturer that ever integrated with it to fix. Where
Right.
Apple could just say, we made it work, now we're going to make it not work, whatever.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
But to the idea of, like, you mentioned about fixing something without breaking something else. The other story that we had kind of tied to this is talking about how critical infrastructure is dealing with the threat of cyber attacks. And the main crux of this article is that we've got all these old operational technology systems for managing, you know, train schedules is one of the examples that they use. If the train switching system is modified, trains could now suddenly be crashing into each other. But the systems were written long ago when security threats weren't an issue. And now that a lot of these systems are getting connected to the internet, they're exposing this huge amount of risk for all these old systems that worked fine for a lot of years. Now all of a sudden people are realizing, but if we put them on the internet and anybody can start messing with them, they're not robust enough to deal with that. So a lot of old decisions coming back to bite everyone in the ass, apparently.
Yeah, legacy systems, it's one of those things that we keep. It's like a cat and mouse problem, I think, because you design a state-of-the-art system, and 35, 50 years ago, these were state of the art, and with time turns into legacy code or legacy systems or whatever it is that's actually running behind the scenes over there. And very quickly does it become absolute when you don't either upgrade it regularly, or when I say upgrade, I mean physically replace what has been created, not just sudo apt-get update or something, you know. So it is it's very easy to forget a piece of legacy code. And this happens even in, you know, mom and pop shops where you have a Unix server that's been running for 30 years that your 75-year-old accountant, you know, logs into once a month to do your books or something, right? Like, this happens all the time. People forget, be it governments or businesses or even, you know, just home users. People forget to update their shit, and all of a sudden we have Colonial Pipeline where this is just the Colonial Pipeline is just the latest critical infrastructure issue. Attackers are constantly hammering not only American critical infrastructure, but every critical infrastructure everywhere, because it's the creme de la creme of of a target. If you really think about it, you to be able to hold a nation, to hold a nation's, like, I don't know, nuclear energy hostage. That's ransomware.
I mean, look
No,
at
we're not
what
talking about,
somebody did to Iran with the Stuxnet virus.
right. That's right. I'm going to Israel soon. Totally
Not
unrelated.
non sequitur.
And no, yeah, no. Exactly. So, and Stuxnet, I think Stuxnet is such a fun, it's such a fun thing to look into or read about, because it reads like a James Bond movie, and it, or even like, just, it really does read like a Hollywood script, how they were able to get this worm in, and it was just so intricate and so detailed, all to shut down one piece of the equipment. I don't remember exactly. It's been years since I read about it. But yeah, exactly, like Stuxnet. And that's state sponsored. We're not even talking about just malicious groups who are out, to make some money. This is countries versus countries. It's the new war, is really what it is. It's the new era of war. And I think America is very far behind, as the colonial pipeline hack showed.
Sure, sure. But to take it back to the kind of core concept of paying today for bad decisions, one of my first jobs out of the military was we were doing year 2000 compliance research for medical devices. So
Oh,
we had to
wow.
call medical manufacturers to ask about every piece of inventory in a hospital and ask them, so is this thing going to blow up at midnight on December 31st, or are we going to be okay?
Wow. Oh, you did the 2K research.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 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 yeah. And that, banks were scrambling to hire COBOL
Right.
programmers who wrote these
Right.
systems back in the 60s.
Yep.
The issue wasn't even what do we do if they're all now online? And I guess the two things that stand out to me about that are we're still paying for those decisions even still today. But
Yeah.
also, how are those banking systems still working? Right? Like that's kind of
Yeah.
a miracle. As much as we have websites and online banking, they're still running off of who even knows what AS400 servers someplace in
which
like that's
which
crazy.
they're still doing tape backups. Like, that's a
Yeah.
fact. There's no way that they're not. And I was looking into, an issue that's been bothering me with US banking is how 2FA is non-existent. I don't know if you remember, but not long ago, when you tried to put a password in that was anything but numbers, it said no. Anything more than 8 characters, no. And these were all limitations from, greener days, where these systems could literally not
Your
manage
only
or
concern was
handle.
not
Yeah,
overlapping with someone else.
right, exactly. And I kind of went into this rabbit hole with US banking, all because I was like, why can't my bank let me use my authenticator app? What is going on? And it basically, from technical experts from the banking industry, were saying that this all ties back again to these old COBOL and legacy systems that have been running for 50 years or however long, and that you can't do it at such a scale at this point. You'd need to completely wipe and start over. And why they don't need to. They got FDIC. Why should they worry? Everything is fine. They're protected.
But I mean, they do have surprisingly few incidents, all things considered.
That are reported on, I guess. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if it was
I
affecting
haven't seen any like T-Mobile level hacks from a bank. So that's true,
if it was
that I
affecting
can think
people's
of.
bank accounts, I think you'd hear about it.
Because it does affect, let's just clarify that it does definitely affect people's bank accounts, but that's because people are, their password hygiene's terrible. Their credentials get leaked that are reused from one service to the other. And it's just a matter of trying 20 of the biggest banks and you're in, most likely. And I do know that they've gotten better at fingerprinting. and monitoring for regular, like, you know, they're doing the run of the mill stuff, or using a known block of or known IP in a block that's known as a VPN provider, or where are you coming from? If you're connecting from China and you're only been connecting from California, maybe it's not you. But still, it kind of just, it ticks me off that the only form of 2FA that I have with my bank is through their app sending me a code. Feels kind of redundant that, like, if I'm logging into the app and the app is sending me a code, it's not really 2FA, is it? Yeah. Sorry, I totally went on a tangent
No,
there.
no, that's fine. I'm just surprised that there aren't more like people actually logging into the bank's backend and moving commas around and stuff like that. But I don't know.
Yeah, that we know about.
I guess, yeah, maybe it
Yeah.
happens more than we think.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I think like the first story though, once you're talking about people's money, then you got
Yeah.
somebody's attention.
Yeah.
All right, want to keep going?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's not necessarily a current events headline, but I came across this article about the state of consumer data privacy laws in the US. And this is something that we talk about a lot. I'm in marketing, deal with, there's the GDPR out of Europe, Canada just, I don't know, recently passed, but they have the CPPA. So there are some big international laws. However, here in the US, there is no federal law preventing companies from collecting, using, sharing, selling any data about you. And there's
Yep.
no obligation for them to notify you. Similarly, if they sell it to third parties, the third parties don't have to notify you about
Yep.
using, sharing, or selling that data. And there's not even a federal law obligating companies to notify you if there's a breach. Only 3 states have comprehensive privacy laws: California, Virginia, and Colorado. So some companies, I mean, at this point, almost voluntarily follow laws like the GDPR or Canada's CPPA because they do business in those countries. But
Yep.
otherwise, there is no federal privacy protection, which probably isn't a surprise to anyone. But to see it laid out like this, is like they have this map that kind of shows all the different laws, and some states have no laws whatsoever. Um, it seems kind of ridiculous.
And this sprawls so wide and like far, because we're talking every credit card transaction is a data point. Every jog is a data point. Everything you do, everything. The you know, the sky's the limit here for tracking is logged. And yes, California is for sure one of the better states. As that article mentions, that we spoke about, I think was that it was Colorado, California, and Virginia, right, are currently the
Yep.
only protected, like hands down protected. So me living in California, it means that I get to kind of be in my own little GDPR bubble, but not really at the same time, because it's an after the fact situation, right? Like, yeah, they have to come out with some article or some you know, some terms on their website explaining this. And yes, I have the right to my data if I want to request it. I've tried to do that. I've tried to jump through, it was 6 major data collection agencies. I forget exactly, it was a while ago. And the hoops you have to go through to get your data is absurd. And because of course they just rushed this law. They didn't say, here's the guidelines for how people need to be able to retrieve it. So imagine, I don't know, you're 60 and you want your data, and you're not very technologically literate. You're not getting your data. That's not happening. And that's if you're here in California. What if you're one state over? You know, yeah, sorry, no, we just got it all on you.
Someone else's problem.
Everything. Sorry.
Someone else's problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And look,
Yeah.
I'm no privacy advocate, so you know, I would just assume there not be any law. But it is kind of ridiculous. I don't know. Like, so what it reminds me of is how the insurance companies want to be able to compete across state lines. And the driving factor there is then they can pick and choose who they're regulated by. So I'll set up shop
Oh,
in the state where I'm least regulated and sell to the rest of the
of course.
country, and that's a win-win for me. Similarly, I think some of the states try to write the laws so that it applies to who you do business with in the state, not necessarily where your business is located. So they try to deal with that, but it really is a mess. And to your point, I guess I can just skip ahead. Um, we had talked about, yeah, this article from Aaron Sankin before about how he was trying to use the digital advertising alliances tool for kind of a like quasi universal opt out, and pretty
Yeah.
much the same experience that you just had. Theoretically, he believed that he could just click unsubscribe and be removed from all the
No.
uh, tracking systems, but it turned out it was significantly more complicated than that. But I mean, that's kind of the nature of the technology, right?
Yeah. And I can tell you for a fact that if you're a startup in California, you are not doing this. There is no way that you're compliant in California's, Virginia's, and Colorado's privacy regulations. No way. There's no way. This is such a difficult thing to accomplish, similar to the levels of GDPR. I don't think it's as extreme, but there's just no way. So yeah, this person, specifically to the ad industry, but really this covers, we're talking, when we're talking about privacy regulation in California or in Colorado, I assume, I'm not as familiar with it. This covers every company, right? Are you a business that handles personal data of any sort, any personally identifiable information, then you fall under this umbrella. And there's no way that these companies are able to keep up with this. Most of them don't even know what it is. That's a bet. I can
Yeah.
almost guarantee it. And I think that's where the problem lies. Is it was a good try.
And so we'll just keep going through here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kind of a related article. This the ICO, Information Commissioner's Office, which is associated with the G7, a group of authorities across the G7, wants to do away with cookie pop-ups, which presumably is how you opt in or opt out of tracking. But
Yeah.
as they say in the article, many people are disinclined to click through various menus to make choices about their browsing experience, preferring instead to simply select "I agree" and get on with their day. So, yeah, that's probably true. At the same time, these laws say marketers are obligated to get consent. This is how they get consent. Now everybody's pissed off that they're being asked for consent all over the
Yeah.
place. Another related article from the ICO, or story about the ICO, is about tougher penalties for nuisance calls and text messages, which I'm 100% on board with. I literally don't even answer my phone anymore.
No,
Um,
same.
my ringer is turned off. If I tell my wife if she
Hmm.
wants to get a hold of me, it's through Discord. Like
Yeah.
literally, I don't
Wow.
take calls on my phone whatsoever. But here again, they mentioned they want to curb persistent cookie warnings on the website, and I think maybe it was from the first article. They go on to say that oh it it said such a solution was already technologically possible and would be compliant with data protection law, but wants the G7 authorities, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and US, to club together to encourage and influence the tough sector and develop it out. Already technologically possible does not mean in any way bureaucratically feasible. The cost to do something like this, the complexity. I mean, we have already the federal do not call registry. Like that obviously is not working. We just
No.
established that. What? How on earth do they think there's a technological solution to this? Like, yes, the technology exists to do it. Everybody can be interconnected. We can all share data. It'll just be one happy information sharing, or rather, information not sharing utopia, I guess. Um, so they want us, I guess they want us to share email addresses for the purpose of opt out, but not for the purposes of other tracking. Like you can, it's ridiculous. This is
The
absurd.
only way I can see them solving a problem like spam calling or robocalling, which has been plaguing the world for 30, 40 years. This has been a thing. Mainstream way of getting money by scamming people through phone calls is, I honestly think we would have to completely redo the cellular just phone calling system and the SMS system. SMS is so archaic. We're talking about, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, again, vague memory or like foggy memory here. SMS is unencrypted. It is so easy to spoof. It's the easiest to spoof. Like you want to talk about, email spoofing, that's difficult to do. That's like anyone can try to spoof an email. Excuse me. Anyone can try to spoof an email, but we have DMARC records and SPF records and so many steps that you have to take to prove that your domain is legitimate and you're not just pretending to be Walmart. But here, this is if someone, a script kiddie with Kali on a laptop could do this in 5 minutes and text you from your own number, or what looks like is your own number. So no, it is maybe technologically feasible or possible, but to do this, it would take an enormous amount of manpower and the amount of hours that you'd have to do that, like contribute with the I can't even imagine the type of work that these engineers and privacy like advocate like research. I don't even know where to start trying to think.
So to make
It's just
to make a distinction, I think where they said we have the technology was with respect specifically to the opt-in
the
tracking and
cookies.
getting
I
rid of
see.
the cookie
Yeah.
stuff, which I mean, the same argument I think applies. How on
Yeah.
earth are you going to manage? Who's going to
Right.
manage a universal opt-out list for the entire internet?
No,
That's
it's
insane.
not feasible.
Not
possible.
even to get into like deduplication and what happens if I have multiple email addresses or actually
Right.
I'm pretending to be different people online. That's insane. But to the phone thing, as you were talking through it, I kind of laughed and thought like maybe it's based on the same technology as the Windows print spooler service.
Oh,
Like,
exactly.
it'll be just as easy to
Literally.
fix.
Yeah. Just break other shit.
But yeah,
We'll be
totally
fine.
fundamental.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And maybe we would have had a chance to do it when we switched from landlines to cell phones, but instead we just modeled the mobile phones after the exact same calling scheme that we had for landlines. So,
and now we're slowly transitioning to this call over Wi-Fi or call over wireless, which is really just I believe it's just a VoIP tunnel, but I don't think it's enough. It's not enough. And my father, he's fairly technologically savvy for his age. He downloaded an app on his iPhone that's like Robocall Protector. But the problem with the Robocall Protector, or whatever the app was called, or these types of apps, is that they're fairly hardcore. They will block a lot of things, including legitimate calls, business calls, whatever. And I think they go by known lists of bad numbers, and there is I believe like a severity score on each number. I'm not sure exactly, but that's how I'd imagine it'd be. And there's false positives like in everything else. So that just using that as an example of a system like this, like it would be near impossible to get it right. And there'd be a lot of issues. Even if you did get it right, what happens if I'm put on this list, right? And my job or my livelihood depends on me having my old cell phone number and not a new one. There's many scenarios here that could very quickly, I don't want to say ruin lives, but yeah, you don't want to throw something out like, hey, let's fix the internet cookie problem and tracking problem. I bet we can do it. It's feasible. The technology's there. Like I think it's a very ignorant thing to say. And it sounds like they didn't actually do much research.
No. Yeah, I mean, to say the technology exists is a very different thing from saying the ability exists.
Sure, teleportation exists. They just, I believe it was, I forget if it was AMD that they patented teleportation technology from, in quantum computing. Like, yeah, it's there. It exists kind of, but like, No.
We'll get the ICO on it.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
All right, what else have we got? Oh,
Yeah, this one's terrible.
so Mitchell Clark and The Verge. Not to be too hard on Mitchell here, but I really only shared this part of the story to experience the outrage about the horrifying leaks coming to schools from ransomware attacks. Articles based on an NBC News reporting that talks about how, yeah, schools are getting compromised. They don't have the IT budgets that a lot of enterprise businesses do. They don't have the internal knowledge and staff to take care of these things quite as well. And so things are getting breached. NBC News collected and analyzed school files from those sites and found that they're littered with personal information of children. In 2021, ransomware gangs published data from more than 1,200 American K through
Wow.
12 schools onto the internet. So I don't know, maybe 1,200 out of all U.S. schools isn't even that many. But okay, sure, bad enough. Some of the personal data includes medical conditions, family financial statuses, social security numbers, birthdays, permanent indicators of who they are, and can set children up for a lifetime of potential identity theft.
Yeah.
Just like everyone else in the country is my cynical view. I know, luckily we don't have Peter here. He'd jump all over me for that. But it just, the point of the article is that the school system's really just not equipped to deal with problems like this. I don't think any surprise to anyone. Um, do I love that information about kids is getting put out on the internet? No, of course not. Nobody wants that. But is it? I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not a problem, but is it a problem?
I think, if we step back and look at the greater issue in information leaking, I think the biggest problem is the failed social security, and now we're going into politics, the failed social security number system, where you have this number, it's associated with you. It's very important that you don't leak it or don't share it with anyone, because they will be able to pretend that they're you. With this number, they will be able to do everything that they need to steal money, or I guess, or borrow money in your name. This is usually the scam that occurs, is loan fraud and credit card fraud. I think the problem, obviously, is the single point of failure called an SSN. Your social security number is your weakest link. There is no verification as a person. If I wanted to, and I got Mike's social security number, I own you now. I have everything I need. I can pull all different kinds of records, from most likely medical to phone calls, and to go into a credit card company and saying, hey, I want to open a new card, or hey, I want to take out a loan. And you'd be, honestly, you probably wouldn't even know about it for a while, unless you have the know-how to set up these types of monitors. I think that's the main issue, is that these schools aren't a target because these like ransomware groups want to hack kids and leak kids' information. I think they're a target because social security numbers are valuable, and schools are storing them on the old Windows 2008 server running in the back of the office.
Yeah, and it could be about banking. It could be about immigration, citizenship. It could be about a lot of things. So I guess I partly agree, and I think you actually framed it really well. The only distinction I might make is it a so my guess is that the Social Security system came about because the federal government specifically needed a way to identify individuals for tax collection, for example. Um, and I don't know this part for a fact, but I'm guessing that the intent was never that it would be a universal identifier across banking systems. Banks probably saw that, oh, hey, the government is assigning this unique identifier to its citizens. Therefore, we can use that same unique identifier to know that our customers are unique within our banking system. And it kind of grew out from there, probably more opportunistically than anything, just because it was convenient for the bank that the federal government had already done this thing. But to the underlying point that the data is valuable because of all these broken systems that are relying on it exclusively for identity management, yeah, that's the problem. And this guy talks about too this example where his credit agency can't tell him and his sister apart, and something happened, and the social security number somehow got associated with both names as an alias, so neither of them can get credit, or like, I get it. Okay, it's the the problem with identity theft is just that we don't have a good way to um, identify people, right?
Undo it. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, the information is only valuable insofar as somebody can use it to impersonate somebody else, to get a credit card, to get access to a bank account, to get something that having a valid identity is used for. And I think the answer is biometrics. We need more universal retina scanning and fingerprinting to use for.
Yeah.
Every computer should have a thumbprint scanner on it with iris. I think we agree on this. Like, this is the argument that you were making, right, John?
Well,
And I'm sure Peter would sign off. So I'll just.
Yeah, Peter's definitely
applied consent. He's watching this right now. He's screaming,
Yeah.
"No! What are you doing?"
I was having a discussion at work, and someone had linked an article about so the article that they linked was how Microsoft is doing away with password. They're going passwordless. The way they're solving this on the consumer level is biometrics. They will now allow you to not sign up with a password when you create a new account on a new computer or tablet or whatever, and instead will allow you to use your face, to use your thumbprint or fingerprint to sign in instead. And this brings me back to the same problem as the social security number issue, which is, how do I change it? This thing is linked to me, and there's no changing it. I can't, rewrite this and say, put an exclamation point at the end. Once this is out, which has been proven just through high def photographs that I can steal someone's fingerprints. Once that's out, that's out. Same with the social security number. So what, now I need to put a freeze on my biometrics, but I can't use it to sign? You get what I'm trying to say? Like, we are not, and I don't have the solution. That's the biggest issue, is where or what do we do to solve these continuous issues? I do not think that we should do biometric based verification. This is just a database sitting there, just ready to be taken by attackers.
But like you said, for the same reason. So there's two issues, right? There's the privacy. People don't want to be tracked. Okay.
Yeah.
But then there's the identity theft. So if I know who you are, it's either because I want to sell you something or I want to steal something from you. Right? So the selling you something part, okay, whatever. I'm totally okay with that. But the stealing something from you, like we do, I think this is really helping me clarify, though. We have this underlying issue of identity management. How can I ever prove I am who I say I am, and somebody else who says they are me, that I am who they say I am, that they are who I say they are? I don't know. How do we ever prove both sides of that reliably? I'm not even sure we have the technology for that. DNA scanning.
I think no. I think
you drive a hard bargain, John.
They're definitely not DNA scanning. Because I'm pretty sure that can be. There is a chance that two sets of two random people's DNA could potentially match without them ever even knowing. It's the same thing as with like cryptographic keys. That yes, it's virtually impossible for two keys to be the same, but at the same time, there is a chance, no matter how small. So I think, you just kind of, one interesting thing that could be done to solve a problem like this is using something like an immutable ledger that was created now and through history logs people, and it doesn't log personal identify like PII, but it only logs your ID and what you do. I think,
This is
and
blockchain.
again, sure, yeah, it's a form of that type of technology that uses basically really unalterable uh, logging. I think is that really the only way that this could be solved. Now, the problem with blockchain that is probably the worst part is if I send you money, and this will be tied back to what my point. If I send you money on accident, that's it. I don't call up Bitcoin and say, "Hey, I made a mistake." I can't even reach the person of that wallet because I don't know who they are. So, and this happens fairly often too, where people send, there's actually a Bitcoin address that is like, I forget, but there's something in it that signals that it's kind of like a dead wallet, and people keep sending it money. It has, I forget, but it's a crazy amount. It's 10, 20 Bitcoin in it. And they're not accessible anymore. Something like 20% of all circulating supply is just in the ether. It's just gone. And, from people dying or forgetting their keys or whatever. So I think that's a problem with my proposed solution of logging through an immutable ledger. I don't know how we solve the identity issue. But some countries are doing it better than others. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that the trade-offs, as unfortunately as you mentioned, is privacy. You do loop in biometrics, and you do loop in secondary, forms of authentication or verification in this case, I guess. And no one likes that.
And here
no
again,
one wants their fingerprints. When you go buy something, I don't want to put my fingerprint in.
I mean, the blockchain idea, that kind of idea is interesting, but then you're back to the dealing with the inertia of existing systems. Who wants to overhaul banking? Who wants to overhaul Social Security? Who wants to overhaul these things that are dependent right now on Social Security numbers in favor of this completely new thing that's as yet unproven?
Yeah.
Even if theoretically it sounds like a good solution.
And I don't even know if my solution is a good solution, right? The one I just threw it out, just came up with it 3 minutes ago. This is not even potentially applicable to the problem. And I think the issue is that we don't really have a better solution, or at least not that I've heard of. And yeah, a big issue is, should we even? Everyone's kind of content. The populations of the world at large are all fairly content with the status quo. So like, what do we, yeah. Still definitely a bad problem. Maybe get rid of Social Security and replace it with fingerprints and eye scanners and face scanners and
I don't know,
a blood sample.
I guess I like your idea better. Reluctantly, I'll admit that. That's as much privacy you're gonna get out of me, though.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so the buck stops at blood samples. Got it.
I'm not saying that. Just not to like. I don't want to like a diabetes test on my every time I want to type something. I don't want to have to prick my finger. Just
verify it.
Sounds painful.
It doesn't sound too good.
So this is pretty bad. Schools are buying the phone hacking tech that the FBI uses to investigate terrorists. And they start with a story about a student being asked to surrender his phone to the school safety officer. And they took his phone and plugged it into this Celebrate Universal Forensic Extraction Device, UFED. And the purpose of it, they thought that there was an inappropriate relationship between the student and the teacher. That's what they were looking for. They did find it. The teacher did get arrested. So happy ending, right? But fairly invasive search. It gives them complete access to everything on the student's phone. And in this particular case, the device, the UFED was owned by the sheriff's department. But there are lots of cases where schools are directly buying this equipment, and their argument is, well, we say we have the right to inspect our students' phones, and this is just allowing us to see what's on our students' phones. So, okay, But hacking and getting every piece of information off the phones, um, I find that to be problematic, even as kind of open from a privacy standpoint as I am, um, because you're really, I mean, this is not a law enforcement action. This is something the school's doing, and what's the school looking for that they need this level of investigatory tool in their toolbox for? If they think something that bad is happening, call the police. They have access to these tools, and it's totally acceptable for them to use them, with the caveat that sometimes the police abuse these tools as well. So I don't know. It's bounds of reason, I think, is what we're looking for here, and this seems to be well across that boundary.
Yeah, I think I want to loop this back to the article we spoke about and say that schools have a proven track record of being insecure. How is this data being stored? This is everything. Celebrate. So I actually have limited but some personal experience with Celebrate. And my father got into a car accident a few years ago. He's fine. And the police wanted to know if he was on his phone. And he didn't know what Celebrate was. He's never heard of it. He didn't know anything. So they said, we want to run it through our I forget what the full name is that you just said, but we want to run it through Celebrate and make sure that you're telling the truth. And he was, so he was like, yeah, of course, do whatever you need. And then we get the Celebrate report, and I get to see firsthand, check after check, because I guess they provide you that, everything that they ran through on this phone. We're talking just an absurd amount of data. Why do you need this for a 15-year-old kid? Unless, like you said, like if there is some criminal element involved, call the cops. You don't need this in your school. And I know that police stations and districts also, they're not that great at storing data, as they've also been ransomwared, but not like a school, not on that level. They are definitely ahead in regards to that. So yeah, no, these schools should not have access. This should not be accessible to them. We're also talking about breaching children's privacy, which in my opinion is a crime in its own. I'm not sure how they're getting around it, if they're having parents sign waivers, but no, it does not sound good. No, it does not sound good at all. I am not a fan.
No, don't love it. And like, even for law enforcement, I don't love it. Certainly there are cases where that level of investigation probably makes sense, but it seems so prone to abuse.
Yeah,
Just that's bad. Um, on the other hand, that's why we carry these phones around. So
right.
that we to do all these things for us. So it's yeah, it's problematic. I don't love it.
No, and of course it's a choice, right? Like the to be my own devil's advocate here for a second. If I really wanted to avoid Celebrate, then I could get a 3310 or whatever those old Nokia bricks were called and call it a day. No apps. All I got is Snake, and phone calls and SMS. But that's obviously not a very good solution, if a solution at all. Is going back to the Stone Age in terms of cellular technology. So no, I'm ever since I heard about Celebrate, it was just shock and awe that they've commercialized these systems and are selling it to anyone that wants one. It's crazy.
Yeah, what you
Yeah.
said about going back to, like, having the choice to go back to the Stone Age, I think that's kind of the core of my argument. And we'll get into this again, I'm sure, as soon as Peter's back, and probably every episode thereafter. That it is, that's the trade-off. There was a survey that this came up because of a survey that said most Americans don't want to be tracked. Yeah, no shit. Nobody wants to be tracked. If you ask somebody if they want to be tracked, they'll say no. Do
Yep.
they want the convenience that having this cell phone and unlimited access to the internet gives them? Yeah, they absolutely want that. So that's your choice. If you know, vegans have had to make the same decision forever of, you know, I want to eat at a steakhouse, but I want it to be vegan. Well, no, you can't have that.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
right? That's your choice. You know, I want unlimited access to everything on the internet, and a cell phone with an always on microphone and camera in my pocket, and I don't want anyone to know anything about me. No, you can want that. That's not your choice though. So I don't
Well,
have
it
a
is your
ton of
choice,
sympathy for that.
but it is your choice. It's 100% your choice. The choice is
Y-
to rip that microphone out and to cover the camera if you
Yeah,
really want to go that far. You know,
I
we're
meant it's
talking.
not an option.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure. It's not an option
you
packaged
can't
very
have
nicely.
both.
Um, I think it's kind of a. I still fight for my privacy. I do it through network-wide tracker and ad blocking. I do it through device level blocking, and it's kind of like I'm I'm the dead horse and they're the ones beating me. You get what I mean? Like you are not beating them at this game.
No.
And research shows the more you block, the easier it is to identify you. It's just not possible to get around this no matter what you try. So yes, you're right. Unfortunately, we bought into this instant gratification device, basically, is really what it is, and it gives us everything we want and more at the touch of our fingers, and the trade-off is unfortunately our souls in the form of privacy.
But we get so much awesome stuff out of it.
We do. Yeah, we do. We get to scroll and like and swipe over and over again for eternity.
That's right.
It's great.
And just keep giving our money to corporations as much as we
want. Back to politics.
Yeah, it's and there's no putting the genie back in the barn. The horses left the stable. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. What's the you can't go backwards.
Back in the bottle. Yeah, no.
There's no going back on it. Like, it's out there. The same with the ICO stories. Like, great,
right.
You know, regulate away. It's all going to keep happening. There's nothing you can do. And even if you look at like, okay, well, we'll track anonymously, but not individually. Okay, except we already know that given enough data points, even across completely unconnected data sets, you can figure out who somebody is specifically just based on their behavior and looking for those patterns.
And I think that's where it then comes down to for companies like DuckDuckGo to say, well, we're not going to collect that much data. But someone like Google says, who cares?
Gimme.
Yeah, exactly. They just siphon it all up, and anonymized or not, that data is going to link back to you. It's fairly easy. You know, it will probably take me, I don't know, under 1 minute to find out where I live, just with my name, right? Just with my phone number, just with a single data point that it kind of, or just with anonymized data. It's that easy.
It becomes trivial.
Wait, what did you say?
It becomes trivial.
It does become trivial. Very trivial. And that's an issue.
Yeah.
Not an issue that I can solve in one afternoon with you, but never.
It'd be like we were back in college. That's what we do. Just sit around and solve problems philosophically. All right. I want to try to wrap this up with something fun. I don't know. This is fun.
Let's do it.
I just like dunking on AI. So.
Oh yeah.
These are my favorite stories. And this one is funny, how artificial intelligence is changing cybersecurity. Blah 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 blah. AI is great. So I just kind of want to go down to the bottom and talk about some of the arguments that they're making. The article talks about the different things that AI can be used for, but in conclusion, they're saying AI programs make older solutions such as legacy antivirus software obsolete. Incorporating new and easily flexible approaches is much more practical. And there are the benefits are that AI's problem solving and decision making skills allow it to play human where other programs can't. Many people don't have the resources to supervise multiple accounts continuously, which AI can do. And even though AI is not perfect, are you not gracious? Effectiveness will increase. And it's just in the we see story after story about problems and mistakes and
Yeah.
biases of AI, and we're just like, no, it's AI is going to save us all. There's no downside here. Just log in and be happy. Just
Wow. Yeah. So many things wrong with this article. But so one thing I want to clarify, I think that AI in its current state is a great tool to leverage against many things. One of which that I've seen is fraud and anti-fraud, fraud detection. The that what looks to you like jarbled data or just random data, I should say, to an AI that's been trained to look through history of your company or whatever at the markets, whatever, they could pick up on anomalies that the human eye couldn't. Great place to leverage AI, in my opinion. Not so great. I read that, I think it was DoorDash or Instacart, that their AI boss, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, their AI boss had them start working at 5:30 a.m.
love it.
There's a great book
That's
called
AI knows best.
called Mana with two N's. One of my favorite books. It's by Marshall Brain. It's free on his website, I believe. And he depicts a future. It's a sci-fi book, but eerily similar to where we're headed. It depicts a future. It's a two-part story or two-story book. Basically, one side is what happens if we keep going down the never-ending consumerist capitalist road that America is currently on, and leverage AI like Amazon is, like Instacart or DoorDash, I forget who it was. And the other is how we could leverage it for the good of humanity. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. It's fairly short, and it is a fantastic read. And this man has pretty much called, it was written a few years ago, he's pretty much called accurately what is happening at Amazon well before it happened, well before they were the biggest provider of internet services, and what's going to keep happening at restaurants, at stores, unless we start changing things drastically of how we leverage these automated tools.
I mean, that's the history of sci-fi, right? It always comes true.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can
Yes.
get the positive social benefits of Star Trek at some point, but
Doubt,
that's
but
the
like
most
give it a few
optimistic of
hundred
them all.
years and yeah, maybe.
If the Earth lasts that long,
Right,
it almost
exactly.
certainly won't. And look, to be fair to Brittany, okay. Brittany Devlin wrote this article. It's a fine article. She talks about some of the things that it can be used for. Reporting strange behavior. Yeah,
Yep.
great. It can look for patterns that are out of the norm. Flagging bots. Absolutely. Great
Yep.
for that. Identifying explicit images. Yeah, probably pretty good, at least for a first pass. Flag it for human review.
Yeah, with verification, sure.
But there again, we've talked about the bias in those kind of algorithms pretty
Exactly.
extensively. There are clearly some problems there. Biometrics, okay, potentially problematic, but don't blame the tool, right? So yeah, clearly some effective uses. It's I I guess I have trouble feeling as optimistic about it because, like, okay, if you want to use it on the edges, use it on the edges.
Yeah.
Don't use it as your final decision maker. Like you said, and Peter and I talked about a story a couple weeks ago. Company just mass layoffs based on behavioral tracking on their network said, hey, we saw that your productivity's down, so you're just all gone. Good luck to you. Like, right?
There's another thing. That author, Marshall Brain, this is his predictions are coming true.
Yep.
Highly recommend that book, by the way. That's my plug for the show.
Send me a link and we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Will
and
do.
what are you going to do if you're an employer and your systems are telling you, hey, this guy never even bothered logging into his computer for the last
Right.
week? Yeah, you're going to do that, but
Right, because let's remove the human element. Loss in a family, sick, found out, some terrible news. We're gonna let's ignore that part, and we're going to fire you automatically.
yeah, I mean, at some point though, if there's so much labor out there, if somebody can be easily replaced, who cares if they have a legitimate reason? Replace them for any reason whatsoever.
That's cold-hearted business. Yeah,
Corporations are not
unfortunately.
immoral, they are amoral.
Yeah,
Whatever it
that's
takes to make a
true.
buck.
This was not a positive article.
I know we're gonna
This
no,
got us way down the road.
That's true. Look, all technology leads toward the utopian future, the
Right.
inevitable march towards our corporate AI overlords. I don't even remember why I had this one on. What was this article? Oh, okay. So they were talking about pandemic shifted the attitudes about the artificial intelligence of things, which is kind of
Okay.
like the next level of the Internet of Things. We
Yeah.
talked last week about. Oh, you weren't here. We talked about how. What's the vacuum cleaning robot?
Roomba.
Roomba would smear poop all over the
Right.
house. So
Right.
they actually decided the best solution was to put computer processing on board and train it, give it AI to recognize poop and not do that. And those are the kinds of things they're talking about in this article, that historically there have been three things that kept AI from expanding dramatically in the house, and it was security, connectivity, and scalability. The first two uh, dealt with, well, I guess all three really, by having the processing power to put on the device, which increases security because that information's not out in the cloud, it's on the device. It increases connectivity because that amount of information doesn't need to be transmitted in and out. It can be handled on the device, and the external communication can just be limited to things that can't be handled directly on the device. Also scalability, because now you don't need, again, that processing power out in the cloud. That processing power is distributed onto each individual device, and then the summaries are just sent back. So hey, one step closer to having our homes completely run by AI.
So, I have such mixed opinions on smart homes and smart home technology. On one end, no, I don't want Amazon and or Google to listen in to everything that I do. I do not own a Nest. I don't own an Alexa. I have a Fire TV that's not plugged into the internet. I try to do it as private as possible, even though I have an Android phone, right? So all of that has been kind of nullified right there and then, but we'll ignore that part. And I instead, I see a future where there's some technologies. Where did I write that down? I know I have it here somewhere. Like there is an open source AI assistant called Mycroft. There is the Home Assistant. Literally, that's what it's called, Home Assistant, open source. There's OpenHab that lets you link home automation things, which is also, again, open source and privacy centric. Like there are alternatives out there. But I do like that Roomba is taking this initiative to store it locally and only connect to their servers for necessary things like updates and whatnot. I did see a terrible video of a Roomba vacuuming a dog's tail and it getting caught, and then the dog running around like crazy and the Roomba flinging everywhere.
Poor dog.
So maybe that AI needs a little bit more training, but we'll get there. Poor puppy.
Yeah, you read these stories about it. I guess maybe part of it is just the terminology, right? Like AI makes you think of Skynet. Uh, and while we maybe have all the connectivity, like we're going to be surrounded by it, it's in our house, everything has this computing power. I probably used to feel more sure of this. I just don't think true artificial intelligence is possible. Like people think it'll be like a human brain thinking, and that's a flawed model for how computers don't work the same way a human brain works. So there's some stuff going on in quantum computing that makes me think like, okay, maybe it's possible. But I really just don't think it is. I think it's all ultimately machine learning, which is not the same
Yeah.
thing
No.
and does not lead to the same, I think, uh, world. I don't know. Maybe that's not even fair to say. I guess it's a different way the world's going to end.
I don't think that, like, I think, yeah, we're not going to get a Skynet. You know, we're not going to have this computer that has a bias towards or against humanity, or maybe we will at one day, but that's really far down the line, because right now I think they're too, to put it simply, they're too dumb in human terms. Sure, they're way smarter than us already in computer terms. We can process one thing at a time. They can process hundreds of millions of things at a time. So at least to what we see versus, you know, what they do. I think, yeah, it's a flawed way of looking at AI. It is not really AI. I think machine learning is probably a little bit nicer of a deep learning, machine learning. Like these are terms that sound a bit better than artificial intelligence. We've been leveraging AI for the last 20 odd years. AI is so vague that it's not even really AI. Anyone can slap AI on a machine learning model that's or PyBrain or whatever, and say, here's my artificial intelligence. It's a brain, you know, but it's in the machine. It's like, no, not really. It's just looking at a bunch of pictures and looking for data points that you yourself set. Your parameters. This, it wasn't created by it. There's some really interesting AI training videos where they run you through the you know, it's super fast forwarded, and it's basically trying to teach an AI to like run an obstacle course digitally, but still they've given it parameters. There's thresholds, like gravity is set, and there is a little avatar, that's the AI, and the AI has to control this avatar to jump over something, right? And they try it like 30 million times and fail, and then for whatever reason, maybe a bug, maybe a bit flipped, something happened, it decides to take a left instead of a right, and it's like, oh, whoa. And then it does that again 30 million more times. So it's interesting, but I don't think it's definitely not the way we learn. It's definitely not the way the brain is or works.
Yeah, it's as you described it, it sounds like how I learned to play Pitfall.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you've heard of the game Fall Guys, but that's exactly what it makes me feel like. I just keep running over the edge.
Yeah.
It's like insanity. I keep doing the same
30
thing.
30 million tries sounds about right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. There we go. That's all our stories.
That was pretty good. You know, I think that was kind of a soft note. I don't know if you angled it that direction, but like that sounded really nice. Like I think finally we did not talk about the world ending. And
in such an overtly negative way.
Yeah,
I mean, it's still going to happen. Definitely.
For sure. Guaranteed. No question or doubt.
If we're lucky to last long enough for it to be by AI, then
I think that's honestly
good for
a good
us.
way to go. Yeah. Yeah, at least we'll be taken care of, right?
I know.
I hope.
So we're recording this actually the week before. So if there's any big breaking news in the final days running up to
we will miss it.
Friday, then it won't be covered. But we'll be back closer to our regular schedule. The next time you hear from us, we will be, as best we can tell, joined once again by Peter. All three of us should be here. For anybody who, as always, has stuck with us this long, then like and subscribe and let your friends know and help us get the word out. And we'll keep doing this show, whether you want us to or not. So there you go.
Beautifully said. Good wrap up. Thanks again, Mike. That was fun.
All right.
Guess I'll see you next week.
Bye, Jon.
Next week. Bye.